Good morning. Can you all hear me? So you're appropriately socially distanced. Thank you for doing that. Last time I was here, this was standing room only in the room because we were all becoming a larger family. And so it's wonderful to see all of you this morning. And I'm here really for one reason, and that's to say thank you to each one of you and to everyone that isn't in this room, in this ministry that's been caring for everyone who has been counting on us to do so. Historically and going forward, because unfortunately the pandemic is still real. It's still in play. It's in various states, depending on where we are serving. And so I pray for all of you that are based here that it stays about where it is right now and then just kind of fades away. I hope that that happens. I don't know that it will. I'm based in Missouri, and we're on the uptick again. And so just know of my gratitude to each one of you. And I hope that I don't end up becoming overwhelmed with gratitude. I may become a little tearful, and if that happens, those are good tears. It's okay, so don't worry. I'm Laura Kaiser, I should say. I have the very significant blessing of serving as a president and CEO of SSM Health, and I've had an opportunity to meet several of you, but not all of you, so appreciate being with all of you today. Before I start, I want to call Chaplain Peter to have a reflection to draw us together, and then I'm going to ask Sister Rhea to share a story with all of you, and then I'll come back. So, Peter, right in front of me. Hello, Peter. Good morning. Please.
We begin this morning with a reading from the Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 25, verses 35 through 40. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you? And the king will answer them, Truly I tell you, just as you did it to the one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me. From the very founding of the church, these verses have been part of the bedrock of our calling. As members of Catholic healthcare, we have taken up this mantle of service, which has been entrusted to us by the first followers of Jesus. When the world began to shut down in 2020, we remained open and available to provide care and comfort to those suffering from one of the most devastating disease outbreaks in recent memory. As we reflect back, we see that this dedication is built into the very history of our organization. The conviction to care for our sick sisters and brothers was humbly modeled in Sister Fortunata, who selflessly cared for victims of the Spanish flu in Madison over 100 years ago. She worked tirelessly until her death from influenza at the young age of 32. Today, our staff embodies that same courage and dedication showed by our sisters over a century ago. The nurses, respiratory therapists, CNAs, housekeepers, food service personnel, doctors, and countless others set aside their own health and personal safety to care for the weakest and the most vulnerable among us. And this sacrifice did not come without cost, for within but a year's time, these individuals would sadly go from being hailed as heroes and essential workers to being angrily shouted at by visitors and maligned on social media. They have missed precious time with family and suffered physical exhaustion and moral injury, serving their community selflessly with strength and courage. Following the example of Christ often comes at great personal cost, and as we look back at the year that has been, we pray that the sacrifices our staff has paid have not been in vain. We pray that the lessons learned over this last year and a half enable us to move forward with a prophetic voice, knowing that sacrifice without gained wisdom would be tragic. This virus has laid bare for all to see the vulnerabilities and the inadequacies of our healthcare system around the world. It has shown that a virus, which should show no preference to host, attacks our most vulnerable due to the systems our society has set up. So we ask then to have the conviction to continue advocating for the sick and the vulnerable in keeping with the tradition of those who have come before us. We give thanks for all whose service to our community has gone beyond what we ever could have asked for, and in honor of all they have contributed, we humbly ask this morning that we be given eyes to see the need, ears to hear the pain, and hearts filled with empathy to continue to care for all those entrusted to us. Amen.
Thank you, Peter. Sister, if you would.
Thank you, Laura. Good morning. I'm Sister Rhea, and I'm a sister of St. Agnes, and I'm on the Wisconsin SSM Regional Board. I bless you every day because I come down Division Street on my way to work at the Mother House. And that's my way of thanking you. So it's not just today, but it's been every day since the pandemic has started. And I see you get out of your cars and you kind of walk across the street and kind of amble to get your mask on before you hit the door. And as I'm going past, I bless you. And sometimes I bless you with compassion. Many times I bless you with patience. Oftentimes I bless you with courage, especially because you look so weary, especially those of you coming off the night shift. But always I bless you with protection. Not just from the virus, but as Peter said, from the violence that is spewed onto you because people don't know what to do with their suffering. So I will continue to thank you every day with a blessing as I drive by. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister. I also want to recognize Sister Mary Noel because I can see her right past you as another sister of St. Agnes. And I don't know, are there any other sisters that are here? Because we're here because of you. And I just I know you know both of them, but I still wanted to call out Sister Mary Noel as well. So anyway, I'm really so grateful that you're both here this morning. Thank you. Okay, so I said I just want to talk about thank you. Would it be okay if I took my mask off for a few minutes? Would that be okay? Okay. The good news is that it's becoming second nature, so I didn't remember that I had it on. But that's also bad news. We're all so ready to lose our mask, but we can't. So I just want to just say a few words, and I want to share a few things with you. Everything that we do, and I feel like any one of you could be standing here saying what I'm about to, which is everything we do is grounded in our mission. And our mission statement that's here on screen, I'd love for you to say it with me. So through our exceptional healthcare services, we reveal the healing presence of God. I hope that that has continued to be a great source of comfort to you over the past year and a half, and throughout your ministry, throughout your hands as we do this work together. We also have our vision and our value statements. We are currently looking at our overall systemically strategic plan, which includes looking at the mission statement, the vision statement, and our values. And our board of trustees, Sister Mary Noel, is one of the sponsor members and board members, so she knows of this. We're looking at this to affirm our mission statement, our value statement. We're probably going to modify the mission statement. This is above my pay grade, but it's our best thinking and our recommendation for the board to consider. It's not that our vision statement isn't wonderful, but it's not instant recall because it's a little long. And so we're thinking about the intent of it, the meaning behind it won't change, but the words may change a little bit. And so we'll share that if that does happen. It may not. We'll share that as soon as that is complete by the end of the year. I want to ask you to recite this from memory because I know that, well, perhaps someone is here, an A student, and knows this by heart. I'm not one of those A students, so I don't have that. But in any event, you can see it on screen. And I don't want to minimize its importance. It's well said. I just would like to see it be a little more memorable right at the ready at the tips of our tongues. Okay, so COVID, which is a main subject at hand, it's something that's consumed all of us as human beings. And I had dinner with a number of leaders from Madison last night, your colleagues down the street, and asked how each of them are as human beings. And we won't have time to do that for each of you in this room this morning, but I am praying for you. And just as Sister Rhea said, for blessing, each one of you. I pray that you are taking care of yourselves, each of you. It's like when you're on an airplane, you have to be sure that you put the oxygen mask on first before you're caring for others, which if you are a servant leader, if you are servant-minded, seems backwards. It does to me. I'm always thinking about how can I help other people? And then as I reconciled that, I realized I can't help anyone if I'm unconscious. So you have to be sure that you're recharging your batteries and to find that space. So please do that. I worry about that for all of you. I'm most worried about the team at this point in time. There's tremendous fatigue, there's tremendous hardship, and I do think it's going to continue for a little while. So thank you, and please take care of yourself. That's the only way that we'll get through this all together with our faith. So these are some of our statistics that we have. They continue to increase, but so far, together we've cared for more than 80,000 COVID patients while we're doing all of the rest of the work of the ministry. And here in Fond du Lac, you can see, you know this better than I, 863 patients and counting that we've treated and cared for with COVID. This is a picture of a former patient from here, and some of you may know her. This is Gloria, who was in the ICU, and this is her hugging her caregivers, full of gratitude for the care that she received after she was discharged. How many of you have had a chance to see the Behind the Mask documentary? Good. We're in the, I'm not a movie editor, a film editor, I don't know how to do all of that, but we had the shorter version that we shared earlier during Healthcare Week, and we're in the process of formalizing and finalizing the final one that we will be sharing in some different film festivals, because we feel that it's something that should be shared more broadly than within the walls of SSM Health, if you will, because it tells a story that's common across the entire country and across the world. I'd like to just share the trailer, which is a short trailer. It will be repetitive for some of you, but I think it really captures well and helps to tell the story for others that are not part of the healthcare microcosm, but maybe the recipient of healthcare, of what this has felt like for those of us that are behind the mask. So.
There were times, you know, I wondered if I was going to see my son again. That was the scariest, not knowing.
This is all from the virus, from the coronavirus.
We all decided that no one would suffer alone, no one would die alone.
Sometimes I'll break down and cry. I had to leave the room and get myself together. No more pain. Who wants to suffer?
And you are the hero of the family.
I'm not any kind of a hero, but I appreciate you saying that.
You're my brown-eyed girl, and you're a hero and a princess.
How are you?
Well, I'm obviously one of your groupies.
I was like when you walk in the front door in the morning, it's like, yay!
The old girl came up and said, "You want me to do your back shoulders?"
Oh, it just means a lot. To me, it means a lot to have that human concept.
So in addition The way through the pandemic is through vaccination, and I know that that's a controversial topic, and I know that there are very strong feelings, and my intent today is not to be political or to evoke strong feelings and into a debate, but the way is through vaccination, which is why the decision was made for the required vaccinations. And what has happened so far across the system are a large number of people have been vaccinated, and we have the deadline that's fast approaching, and you have colleagues, and perhaps some of you haven't made the personal decision yet, and I pray that you will. It's an important thing for us to be leaders, to help everyone in the community feel that the vaccines are safe, which they are. The EUA will be lifted within the next few weeks. We're hearing from the FDA, and we need to get through this pandemic together and not embolden the variants that are really taking hold and making it really hard for everyone, vaccinated and unvaccinated. So those are our statistics. I thought it would be helpful to remind, which is not hard to do because we work in health ministry together, but I thought it would be helpful to remind and just dwell a bit in our legacy of the sisters and what they faced as they began their ministry, as they were called to the different communities where we today serve. With that foundation and with that inspiration and that courage as wind beneath our sails today to carry forward. And so we have another short video that can be said in words better than mine.
Thank you all at SSM Health for your faithfulness to the healing and caring mission of Christ. No matter what your role at SSM, as this pandemic has relentlessly attacked our families, friends, and neighbors, and fellow citizens, you have been, and still are, the healing and compassionate face of courage and selfless care for the most vulnerable among us. Know that each day you are remembered with grateful hearts by many people, and most especially by the sisters and associates of your founding congregations.
Hello, I am Sister Mary Noel Brown, a member of SSM Health Ministries, the sponsor of SSM Health. I am delighted to be with you and to share with you the gratitude of all the members of SSM Health Ministries for your exceptional service during this most extraordinary time in our collective lifetimes. Those of you who are providers, nurses, clinicians, chaplains, to name a few, gave and continue to give your time, yourself, your love during COVID. You cared for the sick, ministered to the dying, comforted families in grief, and experienced a glimmer of hope when patients were discharged. To quote a spiritual leader of the 14th century, if the only prayer we ever say is thank you, that is enough. Every thank you you receive is a prayer, a blessing, a good wish of gratitude for your time, your selfless giving, your love. You were and remain a blessing to SSM Health, to all those you serve, all those with whom you serve. My prayer is that all of you and your families may be blessed in abundance to God, the giver of all that is good. Through your exceptional healthcare services, you are and you reveal the healing presence of God.
So Sister Mary Noel, we got you on video and in person. That's like a bonus. Thank you for that. Okay, so we had a Healthcare Heroes Week recently, and we honored specific individuals who were nominated by their peers, and we had hundreds of nominations that came through, and only a few were chosen from the list that truly everyone should have been chosen from, and there were others that weren't nominated. So I want to continue that. One of the things that I think we can always do better, and I'm not a strong believer in always and never because there's a lot of gray, but in this case I do believe we can always do better at celebrating and recognizing greatness among us and remarkable, extraordinary service. And so I want to do that this morning for one of you, but I need some help to do that. And so I'm going to ask Dawn Vandenberg to come up and help me with that in recognizing Chaplain Peter. And he just looked shocked. So that's super fun. So anyway, please, Dawn.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay, or do I sound like I'm talking through a mask? Okay. All right. So on with the honors. Chaplain Peter. Chaplain Peter ministers here at St. Agnes Hospital, as well as he is our circuit rider who also provides spiritual care to Ripon and Waupun hospitals. And Pete serves on our spiritual care team. And it's really hard, Pete, if I think back and to put myself back into March of 2020, when the very first COVID patients entered our emergency department. At that time, we pulled together the team of chaplains to really have a candid conversation on what would be the role of the chaplains during the pandemic. And as a leader, I can tell you that it was probably the most humbling experience, the most humbling conversation that I've ever had with my team as we unpacked and explored the reality of what we were about to face. And it was a very, very humbling and proud moment for me as a leader, as each and every one of the chaplains stepped up and said they wanted to be here and to be on the front lines. And that was a very powerful moment. In particular, Chaplain Pete came and talked to me later on in the week, and I knew that he and his wife were expecting their second child. And Pete needed to go home and have a serious conversation with his wife, Allie, to talk about the reality of maybe not being able to be present at the delivery of his child, and to get a plan in place to be able to have another coach available should he become sick during the pandemic. So I think about that call and willingness to serve, to step up, and the main reason why the chaplains, when asked why they wanted to do this, is so that no one would die alone. So that no one would die alone, and also to be there for their interdisciplinary teams and to be that support for the physicians and nurses, PT, OT, everybody going into the rooms and being a frontline worker. So it's a very, very humbling experience. I think one of the first patients that came into our emergency department was visiting here from out of state, and his wife was quarantined in an off-site location. And I think then about the relationship that needed to be built, where Chaplain Peter and the rest of the ICU team working with this particular patient built a relationship administered through the use of cell phones and iPads so that she wasn't feeling any more alienated than she probably already was. And I think that was such a moment of building trust, to be able to build trust with the family to the point that this woman wrote handwritten letters to her dying husband. And Pete and the staff were able to arrange to have her personal letters read to the patient at bedside, who later then did pass away in our ICU. I think a new way of doing ministry emerged during that time through the use of cell phones and iPads, but the main thing was to be able to connect and build those relationships. I've heard from various physicians and nurses who said they could always count on Chaplain Pete to know that people were being cared for, that even though they weren't presently in our buildings at the side of their loved ones, that they were being cared for behind the scenes. So that's really a powerful testament, Pete. So thank you on behalf of Greater Fond du Lac Ministries. We really appreciate, I know I personally appreciate being able to minister alongside of you.
So Pete, come up so we can recognize you. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
this is
I asked Dawn what she was doing because she needed something to hold her piece of paper, and she wouldn't tell me.
Imagine that. So Pete, you go by Pete, not
Yes.
so much Peter. Is Peter when you're in trouble from when you were a little kid, or?
The only people who call me that are my mother or my wife.
Got it. Okay. All right.
Or Dawn if she's upset with me.
So okay, we'll stick with Pete since that's good. But I just want to add my gratitude and thanks. You can feel it in the room and beyond. So what you've done here in your work is something that you probably think isn't all that special because it's just who you are. But you've obviously touched countless lives, and you will continue to do so, which is why we wanted to recognize you today. And I have a presidential coin that we've created that has a basket from the sisters, the Franciscan Sisters of Mary, and a recognition of their heritage when they would walk the streets to carry bread and carry their caring into the houses of people that needed them. And so this is for you. And it's a military tradition. We are nonviolent, but it is a wonderful military tradition that many people will do when they will share their individual coin. And so I thought that was something that you should have in recognition of you and your service. So again, thank you so much. Thank you. So, Peter. So that's the end of formal remarks, but we have just a few minutes, and I would love to hear from you in terms of a story that you would be moved to share with all of us while we're together. We have just a couple of minutes. I'm happy to answer questions, but I'd really like to be, in addition to ensuring that you know of my gratitude, I'd like to hear from you because you have the stories from the front lines. You have the firsthand experience, and I'd love to hear from you. What is it that you'd like me to know while I'm here? And I will be heading down the road south towards Madison. I'll hear more stories today and some more tomorrow morning. But I haven't been able to be out in Wisconsin for a year and a half. And so it's so wonderful to be here and to see all of you. And I'd love to hear from you. So, and I think we have a microphone that we could share, or you can project your voice. But anything that you'd like to share, anything that's on your heart.
I'd like to recognize the amount of community support we had. We had just this outpouring of support from everyone, between food to recognition, everywhere, and it was amazing.
You are loved. You are loved by the community, and they're full of gratitude. I saw much of that as well from where I sit, and it's lovely, and I pray that it continues. I think that it will. I mean, there's been a renewed sense of community. We are all a community. So wonderful and that you felt embraced. Thank you. Other stories, other thoughts? Please tell me who you are.
I'm Mary Gable. I'm the director of 5 South, which was the COVID unit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm close to my retirement, but I've never been so proud to lead a group of nurses as I did. Hannah's one of them. And like I said, I'm so proud.
Thank you. How many years have you worked in nursing?
27.
That's it? Only 27? So.
Still in my 30s.
Yes. Oh, no, it's wonderful. Thank you so much for your service and all that you've done.
I've been here the whole time.
Yes. And so you really are going to retire? We can't talk you out of that?
Well, I think my husband might have something to say. I'm giving it an extra year. I turn 65 next week.
Oh, happy birthday. Would you like us to sing happy birthday to you? Thank you. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your comment. Yes.
I work on 5 South with Mary, and I do think...
Wait, and you are?
I'm Hannah.
Okay.
Hannah, yeah.
Right.
So I do think we really banded together as a unit, whether it's being in a room and, calling out, like, can you get me some Tylenol? Can you get me something I forgot? Can you get me a glass of water? And we would just come out all sweaty and just, we really shared all these experiences with taking care of the same people and just helping each other when we needed help. And we really became a lot closer as nurses and as a unit, and I think we really helped each other through some of the hard cases that we've had on 5 South. And there were a bunch of hard cases that we had with people who came in young and for whatever reason didn't make it. And so we did. So yeah, we leaned on each other, and I'm really thankful that we had so many kind, helping nurses with us.
So Hannah, and it's broader than just asking you, but for all of us, as we go forward, and we're on the front end of a surge in Missouri, and I'm praying that that won't happen here, but if it does, because the Delta variant, the Lambda variant is just going, what should we think about doing differently? Because we now have a little rear view mirror in terms of how you handled the first and the second surges, et cetera. What should we be thinking about doing differently, if anything?
That's a really hard question.
It's a really hard question, right? And
like as a community, or as, I think keeping families involved is really important. You know, I think we have more in medications that we can use than we did at the beginning of the pandemic. So we're doing a little bit better that way. But I think we know now we can trust our PPE. So if I don't feel in any way like I'm putting myself at risk when I have, an N95 mask on and I'm wearing all the garb. And so I feel confident that I can trust that. And maybe a little bit more family involvement if we could. Because I do feel like a lot of these people, their family's so scared, and they're so scared, and whenever we can, letting them know what's going on, and as soon as we can, letting them visit and making sure that they're a part of that, transition, however the patient does.
Thank you for that. It is, and thank you for letting me put you on the spot. That wasn't my intent. It's just that important, and so. And we all sit in different places, different seats, and so for you as a frontline, you have insight that I lack and others lack, and so it's really helpful to hear you say that because what we all want to do, what we all have in common is the best we can possibly do for those we are serving. So if you or anyone else has any other ideas in response to that question, I'd love to hear from you. So thank you for that. That's really helpful. The other thing, and if you want to give the mic to somebody else so you don't have to answer the next question, you should feel free, or keep it. The other thing that I'm wondering about is, what do we want our community to know? Because I know that there is immense fatigue, there is immense sacrifice, there is, and we are all wired to serve. That's sort of, we've been called to this work. But what do we want the community to know? Because we are all in this together. Is there any messages that we can help share that would be valuable? Because we're all trying to figure out how to talk with each other versus past each other. So is there any messages? I think about this all the time, and that's why I'm asking. And I really am not, Hannah, trying to put you on the spot. You happen to have the mic, but if others have ideas too.
I do. I just hope people know that we care about them, and regardless, just like always in healthcare, we take care of people regardless of the decisions that they've made. We encourage and teach to make the things that, evidence shows are the best, but we're here for them regardless of what they need and where they come from, and so we're here to serve.
We are here, yes. Thank you. Other comments? Thoughts you'd like to share? It looks like maybe, yes. Please, and you'll be next. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Renee Weyer, I'm the ED director. And I think just on your comment about our community is that just give us a second. And I think let us do what we know what we're doing. And I think sometimes, if we need to have you wait outside, or we need to get our bearings about the situation, isn't that we're being rude, or that we just need to understand the situation first. And I think right now people are so quick to want to comment or whatever, that we just need a second. Just give us a second. Let us get the information, And we're more than happy to communicate with you and stuff, but it's safety first. And we want to make sure that we're being safe and that we're allowing, the decisions and things first, and that we're keeping you safe and everyone else safe. It's again, that's our first thing. And I think, when we were limiting visitors and we were limiting this, it wasn't that that's not what we went into nursing for. We want to have the wholeness of the family, and we want to have that community feeling, but safety first, so we can only handle so much at one time, so we don't want a whole community sick, so just let us do what we know what we're doing. So I guess that's my comment on that.
Thank you. Very wise.
Hi, I'm Brita McCullough. I'm an obstetrician gynecologist with Fond du Lac Regional Clinic in SSM. And I want to say thank you to you and to our local leaders. One of the brightest days was the day that we got the vaccine. I saw Catherine downstairs and she said, "Tell your partners, go get it." And we ran. I mean, we dropped everything and ran downstairs to get our vaccine because we were so excited. The vaccine here was available early and widespread to our families. So I think the message to the community is please get vaccinated. This has been really tough for all of us, and we have an answer. So I want to say thank you, and that's the message to the community as well.
Thank you very much. I have a daughter that is a patient care tech who, like all of you, was serving in the early days of the pandemic, and she would come home at night, and because she lives with us, and she would come home and peel off her clothes in the garage and change into something else and then shower, and she was sometimes wearing the heavy ventilator kind of mask or gas mask kind of thing. And not once did she complain. She was there to serve, and I'm not saying that because she's my daughter. She is just an example like all of you. And she ran as fast as she could to the vaccine too. But she would have continued to serve, just like all of you, until that day appeared. So thank you for saying what you have. And we will carry that message. It's the right thing to do. And I understand that it's weighty for many, but it is the answer for where we need to head towards. So thank you, and thank you for saying what you have. So we're at the end of our time. So please carry with you my gratitude and thanks. And know that I'm praying for all of you. And continue courageously in the words of the Franciscan Sisters of Mary and the words of the Sisters of St. Agnes and their gratitude and thanks. And know that you're being blessed daily by Sister Rhea, which is a big deal. So with that, please carry forward. Thank you. Thank you for being here.